Hello, welcome to the pod. It is the frozen tundra of Tyler, Texas, where when I awoke this morning at 6:15, it was 0 degrees and there was 7 inches of snow on the ground. I'm Bryan. That's Ryan. It's Bryan and Ryan, Bryan Houston, Ryan Peterson. Um, Happy Icicle Day because today was supposed to be Mardi Gras. That's not happening. So we can celebrate something else. We can celebrate being frozen in. How you doing?
I'm still thawing out. Been out shoveling a lot of snow this afternoon for the my church, but yeah, this is nuts to me. Like I can't. I was telling a friend this is kind of like one of those end of days movies when like the climate change comes and it's like in the South, Texas freezes over. Pretty crazy.
Yeah, and let's explain too. I grew up in South Louisiana, and when I moved to East Texas, for the first 2 or 3 years I was here back in the late '70s to '81 or so, we had ice storms. We had some pretty severe ice storms. Um, but it just locks you down.
Hmm.
You grew up in Kansas.
Yeah,
You've seen stuff like this before. So tell me how we're doing, Ryan.
not great, but that's the thing. You just don't have the equipment and things that northern states have. And I mean that's the thing. My parents have been visiting and my dad got mad because I didn't have a snow shovel, and I'm like, Dad, I left Kansas 16 years ago and I haven't needed one in the last 16 years. So I mean this is like, I mean that's the thing. I don't, it's like, well, how are we not prepared? Well, this is a once in a lifetime thing. I mean, we've never seen temperatures this low.
No.
And that's the thing. Normally, if we do get snow or ice, the temperatures warm up pretty quickly and it'll start melting. And that hasn't been the case. And we've got more coming tonight. This is Tuesday. We got more coming overnight, Tuesday into Wednesday. So yeah, it's just rough. I feel for all the people that have not had power. I've
Oh,
seen several friends posting it. I feel guilty that we've had power. I don't know how we got lucky that we didn't lose power. But yeah, it's not, it's scary cold too. It's not cold that you want to be
no.
outside a long
It's
time because
dangerous
it's not
cold.
safe.
Yeah. The coldest I've ever been, my parents lived in Paducah, Kentucky, and I was working in Lufkin at Channel 9 KTRE at the time, and I was going to go up and see them. This would have been in January of '84. This was the year that Joe Montana and the 49ers destroyed Miami and Dan Marino in the Super Bowl. It was also supposed to be the inauguration of Ronald Reagan as president, his second inauguration. Okay. So I'm driving, it's an 8 hour drive in good conditions. So I'm driving from Lufkin to Memphis. Okay. And then when you get to Memphis, you turn north and it's about a 3 hour drive to Paducah from Memphis. Well, it's 50 degrees at 3 o'clock in the afternoon in Memphis. But I'm looking out to the north and you see this deep blue sky. I mean, this dark, deep blue. It looked like a navy blazer, okay, like a coat. And I start driving north, and the snow starts falling, and I mean, it is a blizzard. Okay,
Oh,
it's the road narrowed down to one lane, 18 wheelers flying by, you throwing snow up in your face. The temperature is dropping below zero. It took me 7 hours to get from Memphis to Paducah, Kentucky. When I finally got there, it was 17 below and there were 18 inches of snow on the ground.
oh my, 18 inches.
So
Good
that is the
grief.
coldest I've ever experienced in my life. I don't want to do that again. So when I got up this morning and I saw a zero, and it was true zero, not just a feels like temperature,
Right.
then I'm thinking, okay, this is ridiculous. It's time for us to get back to normal Texas weather, please. The other thing, I'll tell you a quick story about how stupid I was back in the day when I was a youngster working at radio station here in Tyler before I started my first TV job. At the time, this was back in the late '70s, and we had one of those massive ice storms. Okay, and so I mean, at one point, my doors were frozen shut. My car was parked outside, and I had to catch rides with people for 3 days until it finally thawed to where I could get my doors open to
Oh,
drive
my.
the car. So they had this huge, thick sheet of ice everywhere. But I'm driving a Delta 88. It's a land yacht. Okay, it is a huge car. For anybody that doesn't know, there is a rather large valley, then high hill between the city of Tyler, Texas, and Jacksonville. Okay, and it's one of the highest points. Then it goes down into a hill, into a valley, and then you've got a high hill.
Right.
So Mr. Genius here, who's not 20 yet, decides, let's see, how am I going to make it up? How am I going to make sure that I make it up this hill? In this Delta 88, I take that hill going down at 70 miles an hour and then just hope that I got enough behind me to make it up that hill to get out of it's ice. It's solid ice. And I think about that now. And that had to be the dumbest thing I've ever done in my entire life. And I made it. So
I was going to say, so what happened?
God had a reason for me to still live. I made it. I drove on to South Louisiana to see my parents, and where they had not had this kind of weather. And on my car hood, there was ice this thick, still on the hood, on the top of the car, on the roof of the car. I'm driving through South Louisiana where it's probably 45, 50 degrees. And people are looking at this ice all over my car, like, where's this guy from? Alaska? So that's my stories about life in cold weather.
No, and driving on the ice is
Oh,
the
it's
worst.
dumb.
There's nothing worse, in my opinion, than driving on ice. And I remember it was 10 years ago when the Super Bowl was at Cowboys Stadium, and we were doing my station. We were doing Super Bowl coverage, and Coleman Swartz, my other sports guy, and I, we had to drive down there multiple times in the week, and I was fearing for my life. I mean, we were watching trucks spin off the road, go into ditches, because everybody thinks that they can just floor it. And it's like, 4-wheel drive doesn't matter on ice.
No,
It's
no.
not going to stop the truck, and trucks are spinning out. And that's the last time I was really scared driving until this. So yeah, it is the worst driving on ice. And again, when you're not used to it down here, people don't know how to drive on it either, and
No.
it's not their fault because they don't see it. But yeah, don't just because you have 4-wheel drive doesn't mean that you can fly on the ice, because it's 4-wheel drive. It's not 4-wheel stop. So yeah, a lot of people, and I've seen a lot of people, they'll just keep flooring it. Today when I was out, you just see a lot of people in big trucks just trying to floor it, but you got to be careful.
As I've often said, Ryan, the worse the weather, the lower the IQ. And people will take chances in this kind of weather that they wouldn't take chances in the best of conditions. They will
Yeah.
do some of the dumbest stuff I've ever seen in my life on the highways. So, but then again, guilty as charged as a teenager, what I did. So I can't really say much. We'll just talk briefly. And again, we pray for everybody because,
Yeah.
this thing's going to go on for a few more days, and it will be the weekend before we see any hope of a thaw of any kind.
Boy,
Uh,
2021's really been an improvement,
well,
hasn't it?
we've covered some ground in just a few weeks, haven't we? Let's add COVID on top of that.
Yeah.
You're already shut in your house, and now you're definitely shut in, because this. I mean, even if you got out and went around, listen, when Whataburger closes in Texas, stuff's real.
Yeah.
It's very real. So the impact on the sports in Dallas, of course, there was a big stink because on Sunday night, while everybody was losing power in the state of Texas power grid, and the energy providers in this state are getting crucified right now statewide by
Yeah.
everybody, including Governor Abbott. The city of Dallas skyline was completely lit up. All the lights were on at all the stadiums, but there are thousands and thousands of people in Dallas that are without power, and this supposedly rolling blackouts that were only supposed to be like 30 to 45 minutes. Well, there are people there that right now have not had power for 3 days.
Right.
Okay. So the Dallas Stars, in their infinite wisdom, an hour before game time on Monday night, decided that, and this was because the mayor called them and said, "What are you doing? People are without power, and you're going to play a hockey game tonight at the AAC." So an hour before the game, the Stars make the brilliant decision, and we're not going to play tonight. And then the National Hockey League comes in the next day and says, "No, you're not playing." But the PR hit is just, that the Stars are taking it in the shorts right now, big time. Cowboys, just talking about something to thaw our brains out. There was a survey on ESPN, and they had a number of their writers who say that although 2020 was an absolute disaster, they feel like that the Cowboys have a really, really good chance. Some of them are very high on the Cowboys' chances of returning to the postseason in 2021. They think because Dak will be back, we think that the offense will obviously be much better. The line will be healthy, and the opinion is you can fix a defense a lot faster than you can an offense. Thoughts, Ryan Peterson?
Well, considering they're in the worst division in football, it's not going to take much to, I don't think, make the playoffs. I mean, look, this last year was a complete disaster, and they were still in it going into the last week, basically. So, yeah, I mean, honestly, if they go 8-8, they could win that division. I don't know, maybe Washington will take a step. Ron Rivera, I think, does have Washington at least going in the right direction. But I don't know what the Eagles are doing. And I'm still not sold on the Giants. So talent-wise, I think the Cowboys are by far the most talented. They're going to have the best quarterback. And I always feel like if you have the best quarterback in your division, you have the best chance to win it. So, yeah, I mean, and we had talked about this before, when Dak was healthy, the Cowboys defense was so bad that they were still struggling, but their defense did get a little bit better over the course of the season. And I do think if they're just average, if they can get up to that, they should be the best team in that division with Dak back, assuming he's back, which there's conflicting reports. Will he be? I still don't understand how they can't get this thing figured out. I don't know if it has to do with the injury or what, but they need to take care of him. But yeah, if Dak is back, then absolutely. I mean, I would pick them to win the division if he's back.
I would have to agree with you, just strictly on the basis of the fact that the division is so bad. Now, all bets are off if Washington finds a quarterback.
Yeah, but again, will they?
True.
And we could see, historic change in terms of the quarterback position from team to team. I mean, we could see, 2/3 of the league with new quarterbacks next year. So yeah, we really don't know. And it sounds like Washington's looking for an upgrade, so it'll be interesting to see what they do.
Well, I mean, they got rid of Haskins, and they can't depend on Alex Smith because of his leg. I mean, it's amazing the guy played it all. But they just can't count on him. So, right. And so what that leaves you is Colt McCoy. That's not a good quarterback situation at this point.
Well, and they just re-signed the kid to a 2-year deal that's right. Won the playoff game.
Heineke.
Yeah. So he, and look, I mean, I don't like making the comparison because it's not like the Bucs really knew much about him and could, plan for him, but he put up good numbers against that Bucs defense in the playoffs that tore up Drew Brees and Patrick Mahomes. So, maybe he is a solution for them. But yeah, with Dak Prescott healthy, the Cowboys, to me, clearly have the best situation at the most important position. The Eagles, sounds like they're going to trade Carson Wentz and Jalen Hurts, I guess, although I'm hearing it doesn't even necessarily mean Jalen Hurts is going to be the guy. They may draft somebody else. And I'm not a big Daniel Jones fan with the Giants. So, I still think the Cowboys would be the favorite. If, hopefully the defense will be better. They need to draft. Hopefully they do better in the draft.
They desperately, and that leads to one of the things that there's a number of outlets that were trying to figure out where former Texans defensive lineman J.J. Watt may end up. First of all, the mere fact that J.J. Watt went in, asked for his release, and the Texans gave him his release, that franchise went completely into the dumpster in what seems like the snap of a fingers. It's
Yeah.
incredible what's happened to that franchise in just a couple of months.
And the thing with JJ Watt is I don't have a problem with them getting rid of him, but I thought that they would trade him and get something in return. Now, maybe there wasn't a team willing to give up much because he had a $17.5 million cap figure, I think. Because the reality is, JJ hasn't produced the way he has. I still think on a good team, he can still be a really good presence for a couple years. Kind of reminds me of when DeMarcus Ware left the Cowboys and went to the Broncos and helped them win a Super Bowl. I feel like JJ could maybe be that kind of guy, a great team leader, a great mentor in the locker room, and still has some juice to make some big plays. So one of the good teams in the league is going to get him. The Cowboys would be interesting because I think he could definitely help them. But I don't, does he view the Cowboys? I had read that he really wants to go to a contender. Does he view the Cowboys? Because if he doesn't view them as a contender, then it might not matter.
Well, the thinking was maybe because he does love Texas now. He obviously from Wisconsin had no experience with Texas, but I think the notion that you could have him on one end and DeMarcus Lawrence on the other, that where JJ Watt doesn't have to do all the chaos, that would make for a heck of a pair of edge rushers that you could argue are as good as anybody in the league. I don't know that it's going to happen because the Cowboys have got such cap hell that they're in right now.
How much does he want? Yeah, that's going to be the other thing. How much is he going to be willing to take less money? But to me, if he's going to take less money, he's going to be doing it for a team that he truly thinks can win. So yeah, we'll see. I know some people thought even the Packers because of Wisconsin. But yeah, somebody's going to get a good player. He's not the player he was, but again, I still think he can be a big addition, good leader, and still have something in the tank for a playoff run.
Well, you made the perfect example, DeMarcus Ware. I mean, he had a few years left, and he played at a high level with Von Miller at the other side.
Right, exactly.
So he had help where he didn't have that kind of help in Dallas. What'd you make of Russell Wilson's public complaints about tired of being hit so much, wants to have more of a voice in the personnel, the fact that he saw Tom Brady, he wants to play till he's 45 like Tom Brady, but he's getting hit as much as anybody in the league, and he has been for the last 4 or 5 years. I mean, their offense, they have not done a great job of trying to put people in front of Russell Wilson to keep him alive. Yeah. So what'd you make of his coming out fight? I mean, Russell Wilson's always been famous for never saying the wrong thing. Was he wrong to say anything this time?
I don't know. I mean, if he's frustrated, I mean, because here's the thing where I don't really want to begrudge him for saying something, because you look at someone like Aaron Rodgers and you look at, I mean, think about when he won his first Super Bowl, which was 10 years ago at Cowboy Stadium, and you're thinking, man, this guy is going to win a bunch more. And now 10 years later, I mean, he's running out of time.
He never has been back.
Right. And he's never been back to the Super Bowl since. He's knocked on the door a few times, but the Packers have never been big about going out and getting a splash guy or a receiver that he wants. And maybe Russell Wilson sees this, and you see the younger generation of athletes are trying to take more control. You see what Deshaun Watson's doing, and maybe he's saying, you know what, I don't want to be Aaron Rodgers where, in 5 to 10 years, I'm like, what have we done with my career here? Because I thought I was going to win a lot of Super Bowls. So I don't really fault him. I don't know, maybe he could have kept it in-house, but also the public pressure, though, puts more pressure on the front office. And, there have been it's crazy. I've always felt Russell Wilson is underappreciated because you always hear these rumors like that the Seahawks weren't always enamored with him,
That's
or
insane.
yeah, and you're just like, I mean, any team, I mean, most teams in the league outside of the Chiefs would want him in a heartbeat. So I mean, I'm kind of, as a Bronco fan, I'm like, yeah, go ahead and trade him. Find someone that's willing to give up a lot, because I'll give you whatever you want for him. So I don't think they will move him. And the reports came out that they weren't happy with him. But the reality is, if you have a franchise quarterback, a stud like
Listen,
him, you need to make him happy.
if they don't have Russell Wilson, those guys are they're a 5-win team.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly. I mean,
you
they're
know,
not even. That's the thing. The Seahawks were always this dominant defense, when he first started, and they're not that anymore. They're his team.
yeah.
So you lose Russell Wilson, I mean, they're irrelevant.
He's 33. He plays in a division where he's got his offensive line, whatever shape you want to call it, and has to deal with Chandler Jones, Nick Bosa, and Aaron Donald on a regular basis, at least two
Yeah,
times a year. So I mean, he's getting hit, he's
yeah,
getting beat up, and hits at 33 are a whole lot different than hits at 23. And they start to accumulate. And for a guy again that wants to play, as long as he seems to want to play, he wants to do the Tom Brady thing and get a chance to go. And he saw Tom Brady win that 7th Super Bowl, and he wants all that. And I totally get it. I think that hey, he got sacked twice in the wild card round. He's running out of years, and he needs his opportunity. All right, college football. The big news of this week was the hiring by Central Florida of one Gus Malzahn, who had been fired pretty surprisingly by Auburn, handed a $21 million buyout, which they had to pay him whether he got a job or not. He's already received 11 million of that. He's supposed to get the rest of it. So then he signs a 5-year, $11 million deal and replaces Josh Heupel, who went to Tennessee.
yeah. And Central Florida has upgraded big time, in my opinion.
I'm glad you said it because I was thinking it.
What?
I'm glad you said it because I was thinking it, but I didn't want to put the words in your mouth. I said, dude, not only did you just hire a coach, but you got a massive upgrade over what you had. And why is it Malzahn in Tennessee?
And I think Malzahn could be a lot of fun at Central Florida, and they could be, honestly, we're seeing a lot of pressure now mounting that the playoff is possibly going to expand at some point. And look, I don't know if it will, but if the playoff did expand to an 8-team playoff, I could see Central Florida with Gus Malzahn being one of those, non-power 5 that maybe become the first team that sneaks in or gets in, because I think they're going to be really fun to watch. I think he'll be able to recruit down there. And Central Florida's a good program. I mean, they've become a good program.
Listen, Scott Frost made that program. They won the national championship.
Yeah, and and that's the thing. If there is a playoff that will give them a chance in the future, I think it could be a really good job. He gets to live in Orlando. I think it's I think Gus Malzahn should be through. I saw some people were surprised, like, man, he must really love coaching, because if you were giving me 21 million to walk away, I'm going to go to the beach and hang out. But I think it shows how much he loves coaching and loves the game, and how much he still has left in the tank. The funny thing for me is I just can't believe, like, Auburn, to me, I don't know why Auburn fired him to begin with. I really don't think they should have. And then Tennessee, I don't know if he wasn't on their radar, if he didn't want that job. I don't know. Like, how did Tennessee not get him? Because now Central Florida, to me, has the better coach in all this. So pretty remarkable.
The only thing I'll say about Tennessee's job, Danny White, the AD that used to be at Central Florida, I'm sure floated that job to a few people before he gave it to Josh Heupel.
Yeah,
Because they are going to get so hammered by the NCAA
that's
over
true.
all
That's
their
a good point.
cheating.
That's a good point.
That job, I could see why good coaches would say, no, thanks. I'll just.
Yeah, that's a good point.
But with Malzahn, the main thing is he's at a job now where he's not going to have to be compared to Nick Saban every year.
Yeah.
I mean, he had the opportunity. You ask, why would you coach? Why would you go right back into coaching? Well, number one, it's because it's like one of the top 5 non-power 5 jobs in the country.
Yep, absolutely.
I mean, there's a handful of those. Cincinnati, maybe one. BYU, but that list is real short. And Central Florida is a huge school in the middle of a talent-rich state. He probably has a chance to have as good a roster at Central Florida as he had at Auburn. Biggest problem he had at Auburn was that he didn't recruit quarterbacks that could play for him. The quarterbacks that he needed were people like Cam Newton, who he coached when he was the
Right.
offensive coordinator there, guys who were tremendous dual threat quarterbacks. But for whatever reason, he didn't recruit those kind of quarterbacks, and their offense just never, did what it did early on when he took them to the national championship game and they lost to Oregon. So it's just really, it's a great hire for Central Florida.
Yeah.
I think Gus will do. I'm not a big Gus fan, but I think Gus is a good football coach. And listen, he beat Nick 3 times, and nobody else can say that.
And that's what I'm saying. So now you have a guy that has beaten Nick Saban 3 times, and now he's going to be in a non-power. An American conference has some good programs, but I mean, to me, he could have some really good seasons where they could get into this discussion, especially if they expand the playoff. Maybe he's thinking ahead too. So like you said, it was a 5-year deal. I think it's a fun hire. I was surprised. I was like, man, they hit a home run to me with that hire. So yeah, great. I'm sure Tennessee fans and even some Auburn fans are probably cringing.
Well, no, I think most of the Auburn fans, it seems like they were quite happy to see Gus go, but
Careful what you wish for.
They're delusional. I mean, they've lost their minds. If they think Bryan Harsin's going to be the guy that comes in and beats Nick on a regular basis, they're nuts. And I think Harsin's a good coach, but I mean, he's not going to. It's going to be really hard to have any better success than Malzahn had. So
absolutely,
that's just my opinion. Okay, you're the basketball guy. I haven't been watching a lot of college basketball this year, just a little bit. So before we wrap up, anything on your radar that we need to be watching for going other than COVID just wrecking the season?
The only interesting thing I'm seeing rumors are of teams opting out of their conference tournaments. And I haven't looked into it enough, but I believe if teams start opting out, that the conference would lose their automatic bid. So, for example, a rumor I saw was like Gonzaga, who is the #1 team in the country. It's basically Gonzaga and Baylor right now. I mean, it's those two and everybody else. But if Gonzaga would opt out, then the actual conference tournament would not have an automatic bid for a Cinderella that was trying to possibly upset them to get into the NCAA tournament. So it's going to be interesting to see if that happens in some of these leagues. Because if teams feel like they're a lock already and they don't want to risk anything, like you just said, because of COVID, then, it's going to be it was already going to be a weird year, but it may be even more different because we may not have some teams getting the chance that they normally would.
Yeah. And you still got the same dilemma with the conference championship tournaments that you do with the NCAA tournament. Those tournaments make money for the conferences.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, sure, Gonzaga, Baylor, they can say, hey, I'm out. I'm not going to bother with this because I'm going to get I'm going to be one of the top 4 seeds.
Yeah.
But they've got to play those tournaments. The TV contracts, they just can't walk away from that kind of money. It'll just be interesting to see what the conferences do. Do they not give the team that opts out their share? I mean, is that possible?
Yeah. And that's the thing. And look, these are rumors. So I don't know if this is going to happen. Maybe they won't, but it just really made me think because I'm like, well, how is that going to work? Because I mean, that's what makes, the March and the tournament weekend so great is you have these teams that have a chance, that wouldn't get in otherwise. So, but yeah, I mean, surely the conference would penalize them. I mean, they'd have to be if they could participate and they just won't. It's one thing if a team can't because of COVID. It's another just say, no, we're not doing it. So I don't know. We'll have to see. The season's winding down. We've got, I think, a few weeks left. So.
Well, it's been an interesting week, and we're only as we are recording, it's only Tuesday. So I just hope we can actually see some basketball this weekend.
Yeah, more snow on the way tonight.
Oh my gosh, please don't. Well, Ryan, stay warm. Hope your power stays on.
Same to
Um,
you.
and you have one challenge that I don't have, and that's trying to entertain kids that are shut in the house. So I'm
Yeah.
sure that's making things even more dicey at the moment.
Been a lot of movies. We've been watching a lot of movies the last couple of days.
I can imagine. All right, buddy. We will talk to you sometime next week. We again thank everybody for all five of you for watching the Bryan and Ryan podcast, and be sure and check it out and share it and leave comments. And we'll hopefully have more to talk about than the weather when we come back and see you the next time. Have a good one. Thanks again, Ryan.
Yes, thanks.
All right, I'm Bryan, and have a good one and stay warm.